Let's talk about Caitlin Clark. Tonight in Connecticut, Ronnie, we've got game 2 of the Indiana Fever Connecticut Sun series. And if the Connecticut Sun wins tonight, Caitlin Clark's rookie year will come to a close. And I don't think that means we're going to stop talking about her. I don't know. How much momentum does this have? Are we going to continue talking about Caitlin Clark for months after the season ends? It seems a little bit unlikely, but the Caitlin Clark drama, we've seen so much of it. And as I say, much ado about nothing sometimes. I love Caitlin Clark. I just wish that we were talking more about her extraordinary play and less about these sort of manufactured media controversies. DiJonai Carrington, fingernail to the eye. Caitlin Clark gets a bit of a black eye, and the accusations immediately started flying that she targeted her in the eye. She was basically made out to be this huge villain, and there are a lot of people who believe that she did it on purpose. All you have to do is go out and look at all the clickbait that's on the internet of people with their hot takes. I'm looking at you, Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock got over 300,000 views on his YouTube channel, basically speaking with certainty that Caitlin Clark was attacked by DiJonai Carrington and that she was targeted with these fake fingernails and she was trying to claw her pupils out of her head. Look, as I said on this program, it's a contact sport. Have you ever played basketball? Have you ever played any contact sport? But it's just basketball. Have you ever gone down to the YMCA and played basketball? Have you ever played basketball in the driveway? Have you ever gone down to a park and played basketball? People get stitches. People catch elbows. People catch fingers. People get hit in the face. People get black eyes. It happens. If you're playing hard, things happen. Probably every basketball game that is played, somebody gets a finger in the eye, at least somewhere during that game. Somebody catches an elbow. Somebody gets hit in the face. This is what happens when you have athletic people moving arms and legs, limbs are moving about in a competitive situation. I think it's absolutely unfair to DiJonai Carrington to accuse her of trying to poke somebody's eye and functionally blind them and speak about that as though you have 100% certainty that that is the truth. Let's take a look at what Caitlin Clark herself had to say if you're not persuaded by my opinion.
Circling back on the play with your eye, what would you say to the crowd of people that think a hit like that was intentional and maybe even warrants a suspension?
It wasn't intentional by any means. You just watched the play. It wasn't intentional.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin.
I think that she really means that. There's going to be some people who are going to say, well, Caitlin Clark's just too nice. She won't say it or whatever. I think Caitlin Clark absolutely believes what she just said. And based upon her reaction, I think she finds it to be a silly question. And I agree with her because absent some real reason to believe that DiJonai Carrington is just a horrible human being, I think she deserves the benefit of the doubt on a play like that. Let's take a look at what Carrington herself had to say about it.
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am.
We got to make sweeping conclusions, and we got to make them quickly because we're all competing with each other for eyeballs in the modern media landscape. You got to have the boldest take, and you better have it the fastest because that's how you make money. But guess what? I'm going to say what I think is true. And I said it on this program previously this week. I'm going to reiterate it now. Nobody is served by a rush to judgment other than the people who line their pockets by coming up with extraordinary opinions about ordinary plays. And I think that was a basketball play. A stray finger caught Caitlin Clark in the eye. I give Carrington the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure that Caitlin Clark has watched that tape back. I think she found it to be silly. And Ronnie, what do you make of the situation here where we see things happen that are pretty common occurrences, and yet people want to read all of this narrative and all of this extra stuff into it because that's what sells?
I don't really know what else I can say other than I agree with you. It's you just have to decide what path you want to take. Do you want to make a lot of money because you say ridiculous things? And some people do that. And you have chosen, and I, as your sidekick, have also chosen. I mean, you asked me, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and I said, there's no chance that this was intentional. Like, I watched it from different angles. There was no chance it was intentional. And I believe Carrington too, because there's some, I saw some reports that she's been pretty vocal about she doesn't like Caitlin for one reason or another, jealousy, whatever it is. I think an athlete that doesn't like another athlete, I think they might give him a hard hip check, hard shoulder bump, let him know. But man, you got to be pretty close to a psychopath to make the decision of, you know what I'm going to do? I don't like this person, so I'm going to take their eyeball out. That just seems highly unlikely to me. So everybody that was just jumping to the conclusions,
completely.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely. I mean, is it impossible? It's not impossible.
Of course not.
But I don't think you should be going out attacking somebody's character. And, you know, people were calling her a racist. People were saying this. People were saying that. You got to have something more substantial than I've watched it in slow motion 10 times, and I believe that it had to absolutely be on purpose. I just find that to be extraordinarily unlikely, and I think that it does a disservice to everybody when we continue to stoke these flames of good guy, bad guy, villain, hero. I'm tired of it. Let them play. They're basketball players. She's not some villain from a movie. She's a basketball player. Yes, Caitlin Clark's my favorite player. You know, I'm sure Caitlin Clark has more interest in what happens to her eyeballs than any of her fans because she kind of needs them to see. And if it's not a big deal to her, I think that there's a lot of pearl clutching going on in Caitlin Clark world if it's going to be a bigger deal to those of us who are unaffected by it than it is to the player herself. Brett Favre testifying in Washington, D.C., speaking before a House Ways and Means Committee, talking about the alleged misappropriation of funds in Mississippi, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. Brett Favre alleged to have collected over $1 million from that program for speaking engagements that did not occur. He's not facing criminal charges, but he was in Washington testifying about this and dropped a bombshell while he was there, saying that he suffers from Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's diagnosis for Brett Favre, which was not public knowledge until his testimony in Washington. We had him on the program just about 3 weeks ago discussing his concussion history and his concerns about what his concussion history means for the quality of the rest of his life. Let's take a look at what Brett Favre had to say when he spoke to me on this program about 3 weeks ago. Brett, I saw an interview with you where you said that for a long time, if someone had said to you, how many concussions did you have during your career, you might have said something like 3. And now you realize that you, unless I'm mistaken, you would put the number above 1,000.
Hundreds, if not thousands. And if you remember the movie Concussion, Will Smith portrayed the coroner in Pittsburgh at the time, Dr. Benjamin Amalu, who knew nothing about football. Well, I had a conversation with him we were on a conference call many years ago, and afterwards he and I had a brief discussion. And I said, when's a good time to play tackle football? And he kind of chuckled. And he said, I know the Americans don't want to hear this, but never is there a good time for humans to play tackle football. He said, but that ain't going to change. They're going to play tackle football. So I would say older rather than younger. Pee-wee, elementary, middle school, they don't need to tackle. Work on the fundamentals, play flag football, protect their brains as much as you possibly can. But we got on the subject. He said, how many concussions would you say you've had in your career or going back to day one? And I said, I thought for a second. I said 3, maybe 4. And he kind of chuckled again and said, let me ask you this. How many times did you get tackled or hit your head on the turf or run into a pile and you saw fireworks or there was ringing in the ear or there was a little fogginess? You shook your head, but you were able to play. I said, 10, 15 times a game. And he goes, that's a concussion. Albeit maybe a minor concussion, but nonetheless a concussion. Anytime you have those symptoms, it's a concussion. And he said, think about Muhammad Ali. We can count on one hand the times he was really decked, which I would agree. But he said the jabs is what did the damage. Multiple jabs, just over and over again. And when I thought about it that way, it really, I don't know if frightening was the word, but I'll say that. I mean, it made me think about the future more than I'd ever thought about it before. What lies ahead for me?
I found those words to be powerful at the time that Brett said them to me. And now, knowing that he has a Parkinson's diagnosis, it takes on an additional level of meaning in terms of what does the rest of this man's life look like. He's a young man by the standards of living on this planet. He has a lot of years left, family, and I hope for Brett's sake that he's able to live a good quality of life going forward into the future. Here's a tweet that Brett put out on X after his testimony saying that I want to thank God for all he's done in my life. Next, thanks to Congress for giving me a platform to discuss a much needed TANF reform. As you know, I was recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, which has been an ordeal. My wife, family, and friends have been supportive, and I want to thank them for being there for me. To my fans and those wishing well, thank you for all the love. And that is Brett Favre yesterday, just tweeting that hours after his testimony where he revealed his Parkinson's diagnosis. So I think, I'm not a doctor, it would seem that it is safe to assume with the comments that he made to me talking about Muhammad Ali and the punishment that Muhammad Ali received during his career. Brett said during that interview that if you had asked him for most of his life, how many concussions did you have playing football, he would have said 3 or 4. And now he believes it's hundreds, if not over 1,000. And you could hear what he said to me in that interview where he said it wasn't the times that Muhammad Ali got knocked down. Muhammad Ali got knocked down 4 times in his entire career. 4 knockdowns, and one of those was a trip. The guy was standing on his foot. Sonny Banks knocked Muhammad Ali down. Henry Cooper knocked Muhammad Ali down, and Joe Frazier knocked Muhammad Ali down. He had 3 legitimate knockdowns against him in his career, and he was never knocked out. He was never stopped by a referee, never knocked cold. But Brett Favre said it was the jabs, the doctor told him, were what did the damage to Muhammad Ali. And I would have to believe Muhammad Ali, obviously, who ended up with Parkinson's syndrome. Now we know Brett Favre has suffered what may be a similar fate, taking the blows on the football field rather than in a boxing ring. So we wish Brett Favre the best with his medical condition. Let's talk about lighter things. Travis Kelce has been, he's been a subject of a lot of media celebration and scrutiny. Guy was having a hell of a career, but he was not that famous outside of football circles. He was famous in the NFL, as NFL players are famous, but now, of course, he's out of that NFL bubble and people's moms know him. That's kind of the test. And shout out to all the cool moms that follow the NFL. But they're probably the exception rather than the rule in a lot of families. So when somebody breaks out of that NFL bubble and people know them that don't really know a lot about football players, you know that they have gotten into a different stratosphere of fame. And that is where Travis Kelce and his brother, to maybe a slightly lesser extent, that's where they both are now. And with that comes a lot of money, comes a lot of opportunity, and comes a lot of criticism. Travis Kelce's not off to the greatest start that he has ever been off to in his career. He has 8 receptions on 12 targets through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. Those are very pedestrian numbers. He hasn't caught a touchdown pass yet. And there's a lot of people saying, well, if you weren't gallivanting around the world, hanging out with your pop star girlfriend, maybe you'd be off to a better start. That you can't burn the candle at both ends and still come out and perform at the most elite level against the best competition in the NFL. Let's take a look at what Todd McShay had to say about Travis Kelce's slow start to the 2024 NFL season.
Are we not allowed to say that he's out of shape, that he's been partying all off season? He's been jet setting around with the most famous person probably in the entire world. The coverage and the respect he gets is the same. The athlete is not. Now, is he going to work himself into shape during the season? Yeah, I'm sure he will. He's an unbelievable competitor. He's one of the best to ever do it, but he's not the same guy right now. I'm not blaming it on Taylor Swift. I'm not blaming anything. All I'm saying is when you win 2 Super Bowls, you've got the whole tour that happens after the Super Bowl. There's no one else doing more commercials, I don't think, in the league. I mean, he and Mahomes are up there, but I think Kelce's doing more commercials and things. He's been at more events, doing more things socially. It's impossible to carry that schedule and still put in the same amount of time for football.
I'm more offended by the hat than his play. What kind of asshole hat is that? That's what's bothering me. Look, I think this is much ado about nothing. The Kansas City Chiefs are 3-0. Have they gotten there by the skin of their teeth? Yes, but they're 3-0. Are the Kansas City Chiefs going to be one of the most formidable teams when it comes playoff time? Certainly they will be. The guy has 3 Super Bowl rings. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I think we have to also understand he's going to be 35 years old in a couple of weeks. Travis Kelce is not a spring chicken anymore. And I think that really this is just something that we're talking about because in the 24-hour modern sports media news cycle, we need things to talk about. Ronnie T-shirts, do you see anything here that is actually worthy of concern?
But it was funny watching McShay talk. He said, I don't blame all this stuff. He absolutely was blaming all of that stuff by saying it. I just thought it was funny. He's like, I don't blame it, but yeah, you do. I don't know. I mean, let the whole season play out. It's like there's been 3 games played already. And, people are doing the same thing to, as much as how much I don't like Caleb Williams, but you can't judge Caleb Williams' career off of his first 3 games. It's like people just need to settle down.
Oh, man, we need to clip that and save it.
Or
I want to clip that and remember that the next time you shit on him You're going to be like, but 4 games is a significant sample size. If he doesn't play well
that's a quarter of the
enough.
season. Yeah, a quarter of the season I think is enough. But Aaron Rodgers said it. Gosh, how many years ago? He spelled out relax. Just relax. Like Kelce's had an amazing Hall of Fame career, right? I can call him a superstar. If he has a shitty 2024 season, then call him out on it. But settle down on the first 3 games. There's a million different reasons that could happen. Like Howard said, Mahomes has a brand new toy that he's super excited with. So everybody needs to settle down.
Ronnie, Deion Sanders had something to say, and this is going to shock you. I have a Deion Sanders clip that I want to play here in a moment that is Deion Sanders saying something that may be the most uncontroversial thing that I've heard Deion Sanders say, at least since he took the Colorado coaching job. You want to hear Deion say something that is just you're absolutely going to agree with?
So you're saying Deion said something that wasn't somehow Deion related?
It's not Deion related. It's 100% correct. I think Deion is a consensus builder with this clip that we're going to look at. There's absolutely nothing controversial about it. Let's roll this.
But Ohtani is that he's incredible, man. I mean, you could compare him to the Jordans and those persons, Tom Brady's of the world. That's who he is. He's doing things that we haven't fathomed.
Shohei Ohtani's incredible, Ron. Right there from the lips of Deion Sanders himself.
A hot take, man.
He's being bold. He did liken him to Jordan and Brady, but I think that's completely fair at this point, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. What's he at? Is he still at 55, 53? Is that the last one you told me?
53-55, I believe, is
so 53 stolen base, 53 home runs, 55 stolen bases. Okay.
Yes, 53 homers, 55 stolen bases. They've got a handful of games left. He's still got a chance to be a 55-55 man. Doesn't have the same ring to it, but, might as well just, when you're already at the top of the mountain, if you can go a little bit higher, why not do it? Because I got to believe he's never going to have another hitting season like this. He might have a season in him in the future where he hits great and he pitches great, that maybe if you total those things together is a better season than this one. If you look at WAR, and I know that WAR is a metric that is controversial with people, this isn't the best season of his career, Ron, because he's not pitching. He's been a DH all year, so he hasn't provided any value beyond his tremendous batting value. But this is not, by that statistic, even the best year of his career. So imagine going 53-55 and it's not even the best work that you've ever produced. Let's go back and take a look at the poll of the day. I think there probably should be some comments trickling in by this point, Ronnie, on today's poll. So let's take a look. Of course, Brisket is taking care of business today. Crazy Phoenix says Brisket was such a quick and easy choice. And you know what he's telling me? That's a nice way of saying that I didn't do my job today, Ron. Sean says, "How the hell is high school?" Well, thank you. It's you're full of good comments today. How the hell is high school football ranked so low? Says Sean. Brisket isn't the only thing getting cooked in this poll. Yeah, Brisket's doing the goddamn cooking today with this one. I don't know. We got any other comments coming in here? I got a bad feeling that Brisket is I think we can almost know what's going to happen on Championship Friday now, unfortunately. Russell Flowers says, I feel badly for Denzel, but Brisket is here. It's like Jim Ross, it's just, by God, is that Brisket's music? And Brisket just comes out and pile drives everybody. This is the hardest one. Well, there you go. Well, thank you. Brisket or Denzel. See, that's what I was going for. Tyken McCallson understands, and U2 is the most overrated fingernails on the chalkboard band, second only to either Phil Collins or Paul Simon. Well, I don't know if we need the Phil Collins and Paul Simon slander today, game stocks, but why did we bring Paul Simon into this? Wall Street Happy Hour says Denzel can't beat Brisket, but it sets up a super fight between Bacon and Brisket. Give the people what they want. Put that one on pay-per-view. This poll has Texans really torn. Yeah, you got to pick between Friday Night Lights and Brisket, but the rest of the country is having no problem. If you played high school football, says Kudzu Vine Politics, the answer is high school football. Did Brisket get to wear its jersey on Fridays to school, Ron?
Probably
Wasn't that
not.
the best part? I didn't play football. I didn't play football in high school, but it always seemed like the funnest part. Is it funnest or most fun, Ron? Are both correct? Is funnest bad English?
You're the professor. I'm not.
I think funnest has been one of those things that has been used enough times that it's acceptable now. I'm going to declare it. Acceptable, but I always thought that was the best part. On Fridays, they would wear their jerseys around, and it was like that was cool. That's the part that I feel like I missed out on. Ron, did you play football in high school?
No, I played basketball.
Oh, well, obviously, that's where you learn those skills that you.
So do you think
Mike Tomczak.
So do you think the fact that you weren't wearing a football jersey on Fridays did that contribute to you being undateable?
Oh my God, you're going there again, dude. Listen, Josh Mankiewicz on this program yesterday said that he was undateable. I felt bad for the guy, so I thought I'll commiserate with him. You know, I didn't want to have to I didn't want the guy to break down on the program reflecting upon his undateability in high school. So I was just like, hey, bro, it's not so bad. I was undateable too. And now you've told me that it's got to be the title of my biography. I don't know, Ron. I started out undateable and then I became highly divorceable. So I don't know. I've gone the full circle. One of America's favorite segments, not only on this program, but any goddamn program that there is. I'm speaking, of course, of what the fuck is going on, Ron? What the fuck, Ron? We got to figure out officially what we're calling this. Ron, is it what the fuck's going on, Ron? Or is it just what the fuck, Ron? Which do you prefer? Because I feel like this is your segment. You should be the one to put your stamp on what we officially call this going forward.
Should be WTF Ron, and then you can say what the fuck Ron. All right. Like it's short and sweet.
I like it. You and I are privy to a graphic that we're going to debut on this program in the near future, and I am so excited about it. It's
so
just
amazing.
It's the best thing I've ever seen. Maybe I saw it last night. Producer Tim sent it to me last night, and I just said it may be the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't even think that's overselling it, if we're being honest. All right, Ron, what the fuck is going on?
So normally this segment is full of a lot of irreverent and silly kind of things, but something happened. Two things have happened in the last 12 hours that I just feel compelled to talk about, and I want your take on it because I love your takes on these important things. So last night, Donald Trump put out a tweet, and then this morning, the report was released from the U.S. Senate that the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania, the Secret Service knew about it for 27 minutes and didn't do anything to basically keep Trump safe. So last night, Trump tweeted, and it was kind of a pretty cool tweet because it wasn't one of his crazy ones. that there's threats on his life by Iran. Everybody's watching out for him now, and that a bipartisan Congress unanimously voted to approve more money for Secret Service. And he was very happy about that. But the fact that we're even talking about this right now, Ricky, I find absolutely insane that the front runner for the Republican Party has to be worried about this. And not only worried about it, he's now had to deal with it twice. I don't understand how this is happening. And more than that, I don't understand how the hell the mainstream media is barely talking about this. If it was the other way around, it would be nonstop, wall to wall, super big graphics when they lead into the show. It would be the biggest thing there was. And this is barely resonating. And I don't understand why.
As we've said, he wasn't even asked about it during the ABC debate. Didn't even come up. Wasn't mentioned. We've now seen 2 attempts on his life. One that is as close as you could possibly ever come to seeing a president, and he is
Literally.
a former president of the United States, not just the front runner for the Republican Party, which is also true, but this guy was the 45th president of the United States, and we saw him come as close to getting assassinated on television in front of the world as could possibly happen without it actually occurring. And we've got people out there who believe that it's a hoax. Where is the far left in this country, Ron? Because everything that comes up when they talk about the right is the far right. It's like we have the left. There is no far left, according to mainstream media. And then if you are anywhere right of left, you're far right. Okay? If this had happened to Kamala Harris, God forbid, and I don't want anything like this to happen to any candidate running for any office in this country, from president of the United States all the way down to dog catcher.
Me either.
But if this had happened, the media reaction definitely would have been different. It would have been asked about in the debate, and the media not only would be talking about it, they'd be talking about it a whole fucking lot, and we all know it. They'd be talking about it a whole lot. If this had been, and this isn't even just Democrat, Republican, if this had been any other president in history in my lifetime, even if it had been George W. Bush, who the media didn't like either, 20 years ago, the media had the fucking integrity to cover an issue like this and cover it appropriately, at least relative to what we're seeing today. It's not just the fact that this has happened twice now. It's the fact that I think a lot of us are just waiting for the next one. Is Donald Trump a sitting duck? And we're all just going to sit around and ignore the elephant in the room? That he's a marked man? Give me a fucking break. It's offensive to me as an American that this is what is occurring. Because in a democratic republic, we're supposed to go out and we're supposed to elect our leaders. And they shouldn't have to worry about their life to be able to go out and run for that office, whether you like them or whether you don't. And we've got, what was it, this Nashville school shooter manifesto? Have they ever released it, Ron? You're in Nashville.
Yeah, they released it a couple weeks ago, I believe, but after a lot of fighting.
How long did it take? Yeah, how long did it take?
Well over a year.
For that to happen.
Well over a year.
The media handles things differently depending upon who does what to who. And that's the bullshit of it. And again, I will say on this program one more time, I'm getting worked up here, but I'll say again on this program one more time, my favorite quote of all time is by Malcolm X. That's about as un-Republican as you can get. Malcolm X said, I'm for truth no matter who tells it. I'm for justice no matter who it's for or against. And if you can find a better quote then bring it to me, because I'd like to hear it, because that is at the fundamental essence of a functioning democracy. And it's just a sound ethical principle to live your life by. We got too many people in this country on both sides. On both sides. We got far too many people in this country that treat news differently depending upon whether it's news they want to hear or whether it's news that they don't want to hear. And I'm telling you right now, stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Start considering things from multidimensional perspectives. Listen to the perspectives of people that you disagree with. Even if you end up continuing to disagree with them, even if you end up disagreeing with them more after you listen to their opinions, you have done yourself a service because you've gotten closer to the truth. You've thought critically. You have considered opinions that are different than your own. Okay? If things are bad, they're bad regardless of whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. If things are moral or just, they're moral or just regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. So give me a fucking break, Ron.
Listen, man, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it 1,000 more times until it's not true. The media is the fucking devil. The mainstream media is the fucking devil. They shape and mold how so many people think in this country. They know they have that power, and they abuse that power for their own wishes and desires. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
The media should report what happens, Ron. They shouldn't drive the narrative. We lost the fucking plot when CNN debuted. We weren't there yet. It's taken us 30, 40 years to completely fuck it up. But that was the beginning of the fucking end, because it became infotainment rather than here's what happened. The media should tell you what happened, and then you decide how you feel about it. But we live in a world where the media tells you what to think, and worse than that, they don't just tell you what happened and then tell you what you should think. They pick and choose what they tell you and how they tell you it, so that you don't even get the opportunity for them to tell you what to think. It's just baked into the cookie of the way that they give you the news. And it's complete and utter bullshit. And it has done an incredible disservice to the public discourse in this country.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate something that you said. I am not a fan of Harris at all. Do not want her to win. I think there'll be problems in this country if she does win. But dude, if what was happening to Trump was happening to her, I would have the same problem that I have right now, because all it does, it just poisons what the United States is. And even if I don't like somebody and they run a fair campaign and they win, then it's the will of the people, and I have to live with it. But it just doesn't feel like it's fair, and that's why I just get so aggravated.
Do you want to live in a country, God forbid there's another attempt?
Well, there probably
on
will
Donald Trump's
be,
life. Well, there probably will be. Now, God forbid that happens, and God forbid somebody were to be successful. What do you think that's going to do? That's going to send the most unhinged people on the other side out for retribution and revenge. Do any of us want to live in a country where it's just assassination after assassination attempt on going both ways?
You know what it feels like? It feels like what happens in a baseball game.
Destructive for the values of our culture.
It feels like what happens in a baseball game, right? That's what's going to happen. Like, you hit our pitcher, well, we're going to hit, or you hit our batter, now it's our turn to hit yours. I could see it playing out that way. You're exactly right.
This is not a banana republic. I mean, it's in the best interest of everybody. Listen, the best interest of both parties are served, and the best interest of democracy are served when we seek to be human first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We need to try to be good human beings first, and then whatever your political affiliation is, secondary to that. Okay? And there's a concept in sociology called us versus them. And it is, you can see it at the level of rivalries within sports. There's an us versus them mentality for the Packers and the Bears. Okay? Like, you make fun. I've seen it with the White Sox and the Cubs, although the White Sox fans aren't going to be making fun of anybody anytime soon now. But like back and forth, I've seen people get into fights over dumb shit related to what their favorite team was. We see these things happen. That's us versus them mentality at a relatively, for the most part, harmless level. But it also explains things like the Holocaust. It explains things like 9/11. Why would somebody hate somebody else so much that they would commit suicide by flying an airplane into a building, and they would be willing to die because they hate strangers that they've never met so much that they're willing to do that? We're getting into full-blown crazy behavior that is motivated by hatred, by seeing whoever is viewed as the enemy. It explains segregation and slavery. It explains the KKK and other hate groups. Any group that decides whoever it is they don't like is so bad that they're not really human, and therefore you can do anything that you want to them without any regard for morality whatsoever. And Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing, Ron. People, this guy, whatever you think of him, he's a businessman / reality show star, public figure going back 40 years. But until he ran for president, he was generally thought of in a pretty popular way. And if people didn't like him, they didn't like him and just thought, whatever. They didn't like him in a normal way that we don't like celebrities. He only became the most evil human being in the world to like half of our country in the last few years. And why do you think that happened? It happened because of the media, the Very Fine People hoax, the bloodbath hoax. Do I need to keep going on? Things that are easily debunked. This isn't my opinion. He did not call white supremacists very fine people. Go back, read the transcript. That scoreboard, that's a fact. That's not me defending Donald Trump. That's me defending reality. He did not say that there was going to be a bloodbath if he didn't win the election. He was talking about the auto industry, and he was using the word bloodbath in the same context that everybody else uses it 99.9% of the time, which is a figure of speech for things are going to go down the shitter. It's going to be terrible. That's how he was using it. Go back and look at it. That's not me defending Donald Trump. That's me defending reality. But Kamala Harris goes on TV during the debate, and she reinforces all of these hoaxes. Where was David Muir? Where was Lindsey Davis when that happened? But he says somebody ate a dog, and it's tut. We're going to jump right in here. We're going to fact check you in real time. Who was fact checking Kamala Harris? And this isn't to whine about the treatment that Donald Trump got. It's to say that these are all small data points in a bigger pattern of media behavior that has caused Donald Trump to be hated and targeted by crazy people more than any other politician that we've seen, not only in our lifetimes, but probably in American history, Ron.
Preach, Ricky. That's all I can say is preach. Like, again, I asked the question for a specific reason is I love your takes on things because you always sprinkle in that 21, if you count your education, 25 years of studying and teaching sociology. I absolutely love it, Ricky. Thank you.
Vote for who you want to. But let's settle it at the at the ballot box, not with this cultural battle that we're having that is leading America to the brink of a very important part of the fabric of our culture that makes our country great. It's hanging by a thread, and we got to be very careful now. If you don't like Donald Trump, go vote for Kamala Harris in November. But that's how these things should be settled, because we're Americans and we're damn sure a lot fucking better than this. Now, here's your challenge, Ron. Try to seg out of this into some of your normal what the fuck stuff if you can, and I'll try to get my blood pressure back down to a manageable level here.
I'm going to stay in Washington. I hope you're okay with that. So I learned something new. There at the state capitol, there's a thing called the National Statuary Hall Collection. Do you know what that is?
I do not know, Ron.
Well, then we're all going to we're all going to learn something today, Ricky. So there is a part of the Capitol where every state gets to have 2 statues that of people that represent their state. I learned that you can switch them out. So let's just say Kentucky had a Daniel Boone's from Kentucky, right?
I don't think he's from Kentucky, but he
let's pretend
through the Cumberland Gap
for here. Let's pretend he's from Kentucky, and they're like,
I once knew someone whose house was next to the cemetery where one of Daniel Boone's sisters was buried.
Okay, they're good enough for me. So let's pretend that Daniel Boone had a statue at this statuary hall collection, and Kentucky's like, you know what? This Ricky Cobb dude, he's blowing up. They could take the statue of Daniel Boone down and put one up of you. So Arkansas removed a statue, and I can't remember who it was because that's not the important part of this. They put one up. It's the first musician ever. So he's from Arkansas. Do you know who it is?
Well, I do know who it is because
Oh, you did? Okay.
I peeked.
Johnny Cash.
I peeked at the rundown. Yeah.
Okay, Johnny Cash.
Well,
Johnny Cash is the first musician to ever be immortalized in this Capitol collection. So, props, Johnny.
Well,
I know you're a big Johnny Cash.
I do like me some Johnny Cash. I'm in favor of all Johnny Cash celebration and statuation. Ron, is that a word?
I think so. If I'm not mistaken, he had his head down in that statue, right? Because that kind of his look with his head down.
Yeah, I don't know what was up with that. He was holding a Bible. It was a reflective Johnny Cash holding the gospel in his hand. He of course was a great man of faith, Johnny Cash. Look at that. A new statue from Arkansas in the Capitol collection. His sister, who is blind, spent several minutes touching this. Wow. Oh, that's cool.
That's like the Lionel Richie. That's like Lionel Richie.
The greatest.
That's like the Lionel Richie in Hello.
Oh my God. Well, I don't know what state Lionel Richie's from, but if we could get the Lionel Richie clay head up in a state building somewhere in this country, America's stature would only be that much higher, Ronnie.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.